Essential lessons. People ask me how I got here, and I tell them the truth. Well, some of it. The backstory is actually, this secret has been burning inside me for years now, and I can't tell a soul back home. My name's Sophie, and I was 19 when this all started, fresh out of my tiny nowhere town where everyone knew your business and judged you for breathing wrong. You know, my folks were farmers, good Catholics, wanted me married off to some rich neighbor farmer. Can you believe that? Like I was a prize heifer meant for breeding, not a person with dreams. I threw such a fit they called it off, faces beet red shouting about ungrateful daughters. All I wanted was to teach math, not be some man's property stuck in a farmhouse forever. I wrote letters everywhere, dreaming of the city, sidewalks, streetlights, people who didn't care who my granddaddy was. Then it happened, this fancy offer to tutor a wealthy family's son. Triple a teacher's salary. Plus room and board in their mansion. Mama dabbed her eyes, Pa gruffly shook my hand when I left. I mean, how could I have known what I was walking into? You know, the mansion took my breath away. Marble pillars, glittering chandeliers, like a movie magazine, my heart thumping wild. A maid named Beth, this stunning blonde with eyes like blue pools, greeted me, her gaze lingering just a second too long on my worn suitcase. She looked at me knowing, like she saw right through me to the trembling girl underneath. She showed me my room, bigger than my whole house, silk curtains cream-colored, a bed piled high with feather pillows. Gosh, I never thought places like this existed. Beth told me freshen up quick because Madame Coulson wanted me right away, her voice smooth honey but with an edge that prickled my skin. I put on my plain white cotton dress, spaghetti straps, simple lace neckline, feeling provincial. I felt like a weed in a rose garden following Beth down hallways lined with oil paintings. Madame Coulson sat like a queen. 60, silver hair piled high, seemed sweet complimenting my posture, sipping tea from china thinner than eggshells. Then she bid me to stand. She circled slowly, tracing my shoulders with her finger, the lace trim of my neckline, brushing the tops of my breasts, sparks shooting down my spine. Weird warmth spread, a blush creeping hot and embarrassing up my neck. She noticed, said sweet little Rose, don't be shy dear. We're very liberal about women's freedom. Back in my room dizzy, collapsing on that giant bed. What did that mean? Freedom from what? Or to do what? Questions buzzed trapped flies. The sheets felt cool against my hot skin, but the memory of her touch lingered like a brand. I kept thinking about the way her eyes raked over me, like she was assessing something hidden, something I didn't even know I possessed. My simple cotton dress suddenly felt too thin, too revealing under that gaze, even though it covered me decently. That night I barely slept, the silence of the huge house pressing in, filled with unspoken possibilities that both terrified and excited me. I mean, what kind of freedom could a place like this offer? My mind raced with images of Madame's cool fingers, Beth's knowing look, the sheer size of the bed I was lying in all alone. Next day I met Sam, Madame's son. Late 30s, tall as an oak, arms straining his crisp white shirt, muscles shifting like coiled ropes. Handsome brooding, but quiet. Too quiet. Like thunderclouds inside him. Why did an older gentleman like him need schooling, I wondered. I tried teaching algebra in the library, the smell of old books thick in the air. He sat rigid, barely speaking, just grunting answers. But I noticed things. His lips, how they curved concentrating, full and stern, his strong hands holding the pencil, knuckles white scribbling numbers. Why wasn't he married? Money, looks, that intense stare pinning me across the mahogany desk. I felt sorry for him, drawn scared, a constant flutter low in my belly whenever his sleeve brushed my wrist reaching for the chalk. His scent was expensive cologne mixed with something earthy, masculine, filling the space between us. He asked about my hometown, his voice rough, making me stammer about cornfields and church socials, feeling utterly foolish. His gaze never left my face, intense, unreadable, making the heat climb my neck again. Later, in the grand hall, a portrait caught my eye. It was a younger Sam, in military uniform, looking proud and untouchable. things started to fall in place. He was in the war. Beth appeared beside me, startling me. She murmured, "He came back different, quieter." Her hand brushed my arm, sending a jolt through me. I pulled away, flustered, mumbling about preparing lessons. My heart wouldn't calm down. Why did his silence feel so heavy? Why did Beth's nearness make my skin prickle? That flutter in my belly wouldn't stop, a constant, unsettling hum whenever I thought of him, or her, or the way Madame had looked at me. The questions swirled, making concentration impossible. I mean, I never thought algebra could be so difficult, not with his presence filling the room, his large hand resting near mine on the desk blotter, the veins standing out on the back. I kept imagining what it would feel like if he turned that hand over, if his fingers closed around mine, the strength in them. Gosh, how could I have known these thoughts would come? I was supposed to be teaching equations, not daydreaming about my employer's son's hands. But there it was, that forbidden pull, the way his stillness seemed to hold a dangerous energy. Sometimes he'd lean forward to point at a problem, his shoulder almost touching mine, the heat radiating from him making my breath catch. I'd pull back quickly, pretending to adjust my dress, hoping he didn't see the tremor in my fingers. You know, I started wearing my plainest dresses, hoping the shapeless cotton would hide the confusing reactions my body kept having. Then the dinner party. Ballroom full of silk gowns, tuxedos, orchestra music lovely making my eyes sting. I felt like a sparrow among peacocks in my same white cotton dress. Sam sat alone ignored, nursing a drink in a shadowed corner. Everyone seemed to avoid him, whispers trailing in his wake. A pang of sympathy hit me, sharp and unexpected. I went to him, feet moving before my brain caught up, drawn by the isolation around him. He asked me to dance, his voice low, gravelly. I never learned proper, I told him, but he whispered, "Don't worry, little Rose, I'll lead." His palms settled hot on my lower back, large and possessive, spinning me into the swirling couples. He held me close, closer than necessary, my front pressed flush against his hard chest, the thin cotton no barrier. I felt every ridge of muscle, the heat of him soaking through the fabric. He dipped me low, his breath warm on my cheek, his eyes dark pools holding mine. Then I felt it, the hardness, it was an insistent press against my stomach. His thing, getting thicker, firmer, nudging me through the layers of our clothing with each step. A gasp caught in my throat. Wetness pooled slick and shameful between my legs instantly, a shocking betrayal. I excused myself and then bolted to the bathroom, trembling, locking the door behind me. Stared in the gilded mirror, cheeks flushed scarlet, lips parted, eyes wide with panic and something else. Not right. Not me. But oh, how my body sang, alive with a strange, electric current. His scent lingered on my skin, musky and expensive, making my head swim long after I fled the ballroom floor. You know, I kept touching the spot on my back where his hand had been, like it was branded there. Couldn't focus on anything else for days, just that heat, that pressure, the forbidden thrill zinging through me every time I remembered how he looked down at me, his eyes dark and unreadable, filled with something hungry. I avoided him during lessons, keeping my gaze fixed on the textbook, my voice tight. But my body remembered. The memory of his hardness against me played on a loop, making my core clench with a strange, aching emptiness. Beth found me staring blankly at the blackboard once. She just smiled, a knowing curve of her lips, and said nothing. That silence felt heavier than any words. I started noticing Sam noticing me. A glance held too long, the way his jaw tightened when I bent to pick up a dropped chalk. The air crackled with unspoken things. At night, in my big bed, I'd replay the dance, imagining his hands sliding lower, his mouth finding mine, the hardness pressing more insistently. My own hands would wander, tentatively, under the nightgown, touching places that burned, mimicking the pressure I'd felt, gasping into the pillow as waves of unfamiliar pleasure washed over me, followed by hot shame. What was happening to me? Why did the thought of him, of that pressure, make me feel so weak and wanting? Days passed in a haze of confused desire. Pretended normal lessons, caught myself staring at Sam's wrists writing equations, thick veins, imagining my hands pinned above my head while he loomed over me, his body heavy and demanding. The algebra symbols blurred, replaced by fantasies of his strength holding me down, his mouth claiming mine. Madame summoned me one afternoon. "Another ball," she announced, tapping her silver cane. "You accompany Sam." Her eyes were sharp knives. Ordered a dress fitting that very evening, her gaze never leaving me as I nodded, mute. In her opulent bedroom, heavy with the scent of peaches and powder, Beth laid out gowns like liquid jewels, white regal lace, stunning red satin and other lace-adorned undergarments were shimmering like spilled ink on the vast bed. Madame watched from a velvet chair as Beth approached me. Slowly, deliberately, Beth undressed me. My cotton dress pooled around my ankles, rough against the polished floor. Then she took off my bra and panties. I shot her a look as if to ask if this was necessary. She didn't look back at me, just continued. I didn't know if I should stop her. Then I stood naked, humiliated, goosebumps rising, arms crossed over my small breasts. "Little Rose, we are all grown women here," Madame soothed, but her gaze felt like ants crawling over my skin, assessing every curve, every dip. Beth dressed me in lingerie, first, a peach silk chemise, scalloped lace edging the neckline and hem, so sheer the pink tips of my nipples showed like berries under the gauzy fabric. The silk felt sinful against my skin, so light it was almost like wearing nothing, the lace tickling my collarbones and thighs, a constant reminder of my exposed state. Then came stockings, sheer peach silk, clipped to a satin garter belt, the elastic bands tight high on my thighs. Each change meant stripping again, Beth's cool fingers grazing my hips, my waist, the backs of my knees. Her fingers brushed my nipples accidentally, but maybe on purpose as she adjusted the chemise. They hardened instantly, pebbling against the thin silk, sending jolts straight to my core. I got wetter, slick heat gathering where my thighs met, praying the dampness staining the silk wouldn't show. Beth's hot fingers lingered near the garter clips, her knuckles brushing the sensitive skin of my inner thigh, making me shiver despite the warmth of the room. Madame's eyes missed nothing, a faint, satisfied smile playing on her lips as she watched my reactions, my nipples straining visibly against the flimsy fabric. Madame finally chose an angelic white gown, silk taffeta rustling, with a plunging back that bared my spine down to the waist. "Perfect," Madame purred, her gaze lingering on the exposed curve of my back. "Sam will appreciate this." Beth fastened the tiny hooks, her breath warm on my nape, her fingers tracing the newly exposed skin, making me tremble. Standing before the full-length mirror, I barely recognized the girl staring back, exposed, vulnerable, yet strangely beautiful in the white lace lingerie set. The silk beneath felt like a secret flag of surrender. Madame dismissed me with a wave. "Little Rose, I will have the gown adjusted and it will be ready in a few days. Wear it well." Back in my room, I leaned against the door, heart pounding. The lingerie felt like a second skin, I was still wearing it. The silk whispering against my sensitized flesh. I touched the lace edge of the chemise, my fingers tracing the pattern, remembering Beth's hot touch, Madame's assessing gaze, and the promise in her words about Sam. The ache between my legs was a constant thrum now. I slid my hand down, under the silk, gasping as my own fingers found the slick heat, circling the swollen nub hidden there, imagining it was someone else's hand, Sam's or Beth's, bringing me to a gasping, shuddering peek against the door, my cry muffled by my own arm. The shame was immediate, hot and sharp, but drowned by the lingering waves of pleasure. What had this place done to me? Later that night, Beth knocked softly on my door after dark. "Madame prefers this set for tomorrow night," she murmured, holding out black lace lingerie wicked in the moonlight. She said we needed to try it on. Beth closed the door and locked it behind her with a soft click that echoed in the silence. She approached me, her usual efficiency gone, replaced by a slow, sensual intent. She undressed me again, peeling off my simple nightgown with deliberate slowness, her breath warm on my neck. Her fingers traced my collarbones, unhooking the plain white cotton bra I wore, letting it fall away. Her hands cupped my bare breasts, thumbs circling my nipples until they ached, hard points sending jolts straight to my core. I froze. Shocked at her forwardness and shocked at my passivity. Her palm slid down my belly, lower, teasing the edge of my white cotton panties, a nail scraping lightly over the damp fabric covering my mound. She kissed my shoulder, her breath hot, her lips soft as rose petals. She turned me to face her, her eyes locked with mine in the dimness. Then her lips were on mine, soft at first, then insistent, opening my mouth, her tongue darting in, tasting of mint and something darkly sweet. She shed her own uniform with quick movements, revealing creamy skin and rose-tipped breasts, round and perfect in the moonlight. What was this? Was this real? Was this happening? I thought I was in a dream. She guided me to the feather bed, sinking into its softness. Her mouth trailed down my neck, my collarbone, lower, nipping, sucking at my breasts until I whimpered, arching off the bed. She peeled down my panties, her tongue finding my secret places, circling the swollen bud, probing lower, deeper, until I convulsed with pleasure, gasping into the pillow, my back arching off the bed. Beth's tongue was relentless, exploring me with a hunger that mirrored my own, her hands gripping my hips, holding me open, claiming me in a way I'd never imagined. The sounds I made were animal, lost in the pillows, the pleasure building wave after wave until I broke apart, clutching her hair, my body convulsing around her clever tongue. Afterwards, she curled against me, my head on her chest, her heartbeat steady under my ear. I felt a terrifying freedom, a door opened I could never close. She whispered things, wicked promises about Sam, about Madam, about what this house truly offered, and my core clenched anew, slick with anticipation and fear. He watches you, Beth breathed, her fingers tracing patterns on my damp stomach. He wants you. Madam knows. She approves. The thought sent a fresh shiver through me, not of fear, but of raw, thrilling possibility. Beth's hand slid lower again, reigniting the fire, showing me another path to that shattering peak, her touch bolder now, claiming me as hers. We lay tangled for hours, the moon painting silver stripes across the bed, the world outside my window forgotten. Beth taught me things my mother never whispered about, ways to touch myself, ways to please her, her murmured instructions setting my skin ablaze. When she finally slipped away before dawn, the taste of her skin on my lips, the scent of her hair on my pillow, I knew I was changed. The innocent farm girl was gone, replaced by this creature of silk and sensation, hungry for more. After Beth, I felt reborn. Loose, hungry, like a string snapped inside me. With Sam, I became bolder, reckless. During a lesson, I touched his shoulder laughing over a botched equation, my fingers lingering on the hard muscle beneath his shirt. He flinched, a sharp intake of breath, his gaze snapping to mine, dark and dangerous. He later showed me his paintings in the conservatory and offered to teach me. I agreed and he stood there standing behind me, his heat searing my back as he guided my hand holding a brush across a canvas. His front pressed flush against me and his heavy hand settled possessively on my hip, real low on my hip. When he did this, a jolt shot straight to my core, wetness blooming instantly. I wanted his mouth on mine, his hands under my skirt, ripping away the barriers. The air hummed with tension, thick and sweet as honey. He leaned down, his lips brushing my ear. "Careful, little Rose," he murmured, his voice rough. The warning only made the heat flare hotter. I tilted my head back, offering my throat, a silent dare. He stepped away abruptly, leaving me trembling, aching, the dampness between my legs impossible to ignore. During the day, when lessons were completed and I roamed the house, Beth and I stole kisses in shadowed hallways, her tongue darting into my mouth while her hands squeezed my bottom, hiking my skirt to palm the bare skin beneath my stocking tops. Once, behind a heavy velvet curtain during a stuffy afternoon tea with Madam's friends, Beth pushed me against the cold wall, her mouth fierce, her hands slipping under my simple blue cotton skirt, finding me already wet, her fingers sliding inside with practiced ease while I bit my lip to stay quiet, the scent of dust and our shared arousal thick in the air. I was floating, drunk on secrets, the thrill of discovery a drug in my veins. I'd catch Sam watching Beth and I chat and giggle over tea sometimes, a dark, possessive look in his eyes that sent shivers down my spine, a different kind of heat pooling low. During lessons, I'd lean closer than necessary, letting my hand rest near his on the desk, feeling the tension radiating off him, the barely leashed control. One afternoon, he slammed his fist on the desk, making me jump. Enough, he growled, his eyes blazing. But he didn't move away. He just stared, his chest rising and falling rapidly, the vein in his neck pulsing. The silence stretched, taut as a wire. I licked my lips, saw his gaze drop to my mouth. The urge to reach out, to touch the tension in his jaw, was overwhelming. The interaction was strange, but in the back of my mind I had a clue of what he was thinking. I was thinking it too. Beth found me in the linen closet one afternoon, pushing me against the shelves stacked high with crisp sheets. Her mouth was fierce, demanding, her hand already under my simple green cotton skirt, finding the soaked cotton of my plain white panties. Thinking about him? She whispered against my lips, her fingers slipping beneath the elastic, sliding through my slick folds, finding that sensitive nub. I moaned, nodding, the image of Sam's intense stare mixing with the feel of Beth's clever fingers. Good, Beth breathed, her thumbs circling relentlessly. He's thinking about you too. About this. She pushed 2 fingers inside me, curling them, hitting a spot that made my knees buckle. I cried out, muffled by her shoulder, the scent of clean linen and our passion filling the small space as she brought me to a shuddering climax, holding me upright as I trembled. Soon, she promised, kissing my temple. Very soon. The next day, the altered white gown arrived, even more daring. The plunging neckline dipped lower, the back dipping impossibly low, almost to the swell of my bottom. Madam called for a final fitting. Beth was absent. Madam herself rose from her velvet chair, her movements deliberate. She undressed me, peeling off my blouse and skirt with deliberate slowness, her knuckles brushing my ribs. Standing before her in just my plain white cotton bra and panties, I felt exposed, vulnerable. Her palms cupped my breasts through the thin fabric, thumbs grazing my nipples until they pebbled, sharp and meaty. I was soaking, my panties clinging to the damp fabric, chafing my swollen flesh. Her fingers dipped below the waistband, stroking my wet slit, parting my folds in a shocking intimacy. I froze, breath catching. Little Rose, give in, she whispered, her voice husky, commanding. It's natural. I trembled, unable to move, unable to stop her. Her fingers worked expertly, circling the swollen bud at my apex, sending sparks flying behind my lids. Then 2 digits slid inside me, curling just so, her thumb pressing tight circles on that sensitive nub. Stars burst. She held me up, a small, satisfied smile on her lips, as my eyes opened again. Dazed, I let her dress me in new ivory lingerie, a satin corset with tiny pearl buttons digging into my waist, cinching me tight, and sheer black stockings held up by ribbon garters that bit into my thighs. The white gown shimmered in the mirror, the back plunging dangerously low, leaving the corset's intricate lace panels partially visible. Exposed, beautiful, a forbidden jewel on display. Madam then excused herself with a sly smile. Errands to run, she said. I will be back in a while, she said as her voice trailed off, her hand closing the heavy door. I stared at my flushed reflection, chest heaving. Before I could move, Sam stepped silently from the adjoining bathroom. His shirt was unbuttoned, chest bare and sculpted, dusted with dark hair. He moved like a predator, stopping behind me, his reflection towering over mine in the mirror. His eyes, dark and hungry, raked over my exposed back, the curve of my corseted waist. Little Rose, do you think about this? He asked, his voice rough as gravelly. I was stunned, fear struck me and froze my feet in their place. I nodded sheepishly, breath catching in my throat. He spun me around, kissed me soft and deep, it was claiming, his tongue invading my mouth, tasting of whiskey and raw power. His hands ripped at the gown's delicate shoulder straps, tore at the corset laces, pearl buttons pinging off the walls like tiny gunshots. I gasped. He lifted me like I weighed nothing and carried me onto the velvet chaise lounge, spreading my legs wide. I couldn't believe it. Was this the same Sam? My student, my quiet student? He was like a different person. So aggressive, so domineering, taking me like I was property. Calloused palms slid my stockings down my thighs. His own clothing vanished quickly, revealing his full, thick length, rigid and flushed. He settled between my thighs, the head nudging my slick entrance. He was huge, stretching me unbearably. It demanded entrance, but I was so tight. I shrieked in pain. I said, "No, Sam, please. Not like this." His mouth reached my neck, tongue darting, making the ache below intensify. I was so slick and his head kept demanding entrance, slowly pulsing forward until it breached my wet petals. I cupped my mouth to muffle the scream. It was inside me now, and so thick. He kept pushing forward, the stinging sensation flashing in front of my eyes. I didn't know what was happening. It was all so sudden and intense. He continued pushing deeper into me, and now he was filling me up, to my limit, so deep. He kissed me deeply and I kissed him back, our tongues dancing. The movement started slowly, each time giving me time to adjust. I still said those things. "No, Sam, please, what are you doing?" But he ignored my pleas. He could feel my wetness telling him the truth. I wanted this. Dreamed about it. His hips started longer strokes now. In and out as my wetness increased, he claimed me, each punishingly slow stroke driving a cry from my lips as I clawed at the velvet fabric. His size was shocking, stretching me in ways that bordered pain but tipped instantly into overwhelming pleasure. His movements were relentless, possessive, claiming me on his mother's chaise, his groans rough in my ear, his hands bruising my hips. I then surrendered utterly, crying out with each deep thrust, the velvet rough against my back, the world narrowing to his heat, his strength, the incredible friction building. Then I shattered, jolts of lightning coursing through my body, wave after wave. This was different than what I felt with Beth. It was deeper, harder, more shocking. The pleasure made me see streamers in my closed eyelids, my body clenching around him, pulling him closer. I eventually found my breath and he continued, longer strokes this time, more animalistic. I gripped his strong arms with my hands, feeling the hard muscle. It was so arousing, feeling his domination over me, taking what he wanted, claiming my body, my innocence. He was chasing his own release, and then he grunted, paused, then hot liquid shot into me, pulsing deep inside me, over and over. I could feel his power be injected into me. It was rapturous, glorious. As he collapsed over me, breathing heavily, his weight crushing, comforting. We lay there breathing heavily, gripping each other tight. He kissed me so softly, so wet and affectionate, and I kissed him back, returning the affection. He held me, our skin damp, hearts pounding against each other, the air thick with the scent of us. He didn't speak, just traced a finger down my flushed cheek. The silence said everything. I was his. It was the first time I had ever been with a man, and it was the most amazing experience. I will never forget the strength, the power, my complete submission. It will be with me for the rest of my life. Ball night was a blur of champagne flutes, whispered envy, a whirlwind of silk, and sidelong glances. All day, Madam's hands accidentally brushed my bottom, my breasts, as she adjusted my hair or the gown's drape, her touch lingering, proprietary. Sam cornered me in the library before the guests arrived, kissing me until my knees buckled, his hands sliding up my stocking to grip my bare thigh, fingers inching higher beneath the gown's skirt. Beth found me later, slipping her tongue into my mouth from behind the velvet curtain, her fingers finding my dampness, rubbing slow circles. Drunk on the constant attention, the danger, the line between right and wrong blurring like smudged ink. At the ball, Sam whirled me across the floor, his hardness pressed undeniable against me through the layers of fabric. Women dripping diamonds eyed me like trash, their sneers like ice down my spine. I drank too much brandy, swaying, the room tilting. Sam took me upstairs, his arm tight around my waist, guiding me firmly. Once in his bedroom, I found Beth there waited for us, wearing only a pink lace baby doll teddy, sheer as mist, her nipples pink shadows beneath, a wicked smile on her lips. Fear spiked, but Beth kissed me, pulling me towards the enormous bed, her hands tugging at my white gown. Sam undressed swiftly, revealing his full, thick length, rigid and flushed. Beth knelt before him, showing me how to please him with her mouth, her tongue guiding the shaft. Then she had me kneel too, both of us worshipping this large hard beast. She guided his thing into my mouth. The taste of him was foreign, musky, the saltskin flavor filling my senses. I had never done anything like this before, but it was exhilarating. Her fingers tangled in my hair, encouraging me deeper, showing me the rhythm that made him groan. We took turns tasting him, our lips meeting over his rigid heat, sharing the taste, the intimacy dizzying before he released his liquid into Beth's throat with a groan, hot pulses which she swallowed greedily. I was in awe. I had never seen a woman do this before, and I was curious. What was this strange custom? Then Beth reached over and kissed me, both of us still on our knees. She gave me a taste of Sam's seed. It was salty and astringent, such a strange flavor, but I kept it in my mouth and swallowed because this was a part of Sam and I wanted him to see my compliance. I wanted to do anything for him. Sam led both of us up and on the bed. He watched as we both enjoyed each other's bodies. Beth's tongue worked on my wetness and deftly applied pressure at just the right times. I was so aroused again I felt like I could blow. I saw Sam standing there stroking his thing as it rose again. Hard and stiff. I watched him handle himself and his big thing and it made me want to pop. But just as I was near the peak, Beth stopped, leaned back off me and allowed Sam to crawl over me. His big body, his presence, it felt like a threat, one that I wanted to submit to totally. He positioned himself at my gates again, demanding entrance. I was so wet that it slid in easier this time, with less pain. I winced, closing my eyes. But he kept going, further, deeper inside. Filling me up with his massive rod. I felt impaled, like my body was controlled by this big thing. He continued thrusting slowly, deeply. I was reaching my peak again. He raised my arm over my head and licked my armpits, and the tickling sensation sent jolts all the way down, and I exploded with a climax so hard, I thought my head would fall off. I convulsed and screamed with pleasure. It was incredible. The feeling, I can't describe it. Sam then lifted me up and turned me over, propping me up on all fours. He entered me again from behind, hands gripping tight on my waist. He thrust with aggression now. My body was like a rag doll being raked over a steel rod. He was so domineering, so demanding. My utter lack of power, my submission to his will to each one of his thrusts, it was incredible. He grunted loudly and blew up inside me with huge thuds, hitting my insides, the slickness lubricating me in ways I never thought possible. The sensation was overwhelming. As convulsions subsided, he pulled out of me and stood tall on his knees. I saw Beth immediately put his wet member in her mouth. She was sucking out all his seed. Swallowing it gulp after gulp. I joined her and pleaded for a taste, and I sucked out the rest. He still was depositing his expulsion in my throat, the swallowing sensation coming so easy for me now. Beth and I continued to clean until there was nothing left, and we fell over each other kissing deeply. It was the most incredible, unforgettable night of my life. The offering up of my body, my soul, my will to this powerful strong man, it gave me a feeling of completeness, of utter love. The three of us held each other that evening, cuddling, laughing, kissing, all night. We didn't return to the party and only awoke when the sun came up. I married Sam 6 months later. We moved Beth into our wing as my companion, my best friend and more. It was flimsy veil over the raw truth that the outside world wouldn't understand. In the following months, we were unhinged, insatiable, daring to an extreme. Some days, he'd take me down to the wine cellar, cool and smelling of oak, tie my wrists with rough ropes biting into my skin, my back pressed against the cold stone wall. Whips would crack against bare skin, a sharp sting followed by heat before he'd descend, his mouth hot on the mark, his hands possessive, demanding satisfaction amidst the barrels of aging Burgundy. Once he invited blonde twins from the city, their mouths and hands everywhere, licking, pinching, while I wept from the sheer overwhelming pleasure lost in a tangle of limbs and desperate moans under his watchful command. I never went back to my town. Here I was free in ways those church ladies could never imagine. Free to be owned. Used. To crave the sting of submission. Madam was right about freedom. Sam's domination, Beth's tender cruelty owning my body and soul. I craved it like air, like water in a desert. My parents think I'm a respectable teacher, their letters filled with pride. They'd never know I spend nights spread open for my husband and lover, taking whatever they give. His completely. God help me, I love every wicked, shameful moment. The secret thrill coils in my belly every time the door locks. You know, writing this down, confessing it here, it makes it real again, the memories flooding back so vivid I can almost smell the peaches in Madam's room, the starch in Beth's uniform, the musky scent of Sam's skin. Gosh, what have I become? And why does it feel so impossibly right? The weight of the secret is heavy, a stone in my chest when I see a young girl in a simple,